For 28 years, Public Allies has believed that communities already have the leadership they need to create lasting social change. For 28 years, Public Allies' mission has been to create a just and equitable society and the diverse leadership to sustain it. For 28 years, Public Allies has believed that everyone can lead. In 2020, nearly all site directors across the country co-authored and signed a list of demands for improved oversight, support, culture, and working conditions, including equitable pay. Leadership at the time promised to share specific strategies for improvement, but only deferred action and never delivered. Nearly a dozen workers from local and national teams comprised a harm, healing, and reconciliation committee to identify consultants to support Public Allies. Their concerns were met with a lack of acknowledgement, lack of accountability, and lack of recognition. Without notice, Public Allies endured a near decimation. 9 of 23 national sites were shut down, and nearly half of all Public Allies, local and national staff were terminated. With nearly 9,000 alumni, Public Allies nationwide are a force to be reckoned with. What happens when leadership no longer becomes sustainable?
I remember getting an email saying there are some big changes. I'm like, okay, I'm definitely curious. But when the changes actually were announced, that they were shutting down offices, right away there was some casual conversation, some texting. We got onto a Signal chat, and a lot of things just got coordinated from there.
It felt like it was first Wisconsin, and then because Wisconsin has so many Public Allies that are now all over the country, I think within 3 days sort of blew up from there, and figuring out what's going on, how are we getting information in real time, and how do we make sure that the organization that we love remains the organization that we love, not in the sense that everything has to be the same. I don't think that people are change averse. I think what happened didn't reflect the actual values of the organization.
The response was people first. I think outrage, the response was outrage into action pretty quickly. And I was really inspired, and on so many fronts. And the first one was how do we take care of the people that were affected? Certainly the undercurrent was, how do we change this? How do we raise our voice? But it was, how do we take care of the people? Because this affects people and families. And that's what we care about first and foremost. And I was inspired, but not surprised.
People started getting into teams, and this is classic PA, because we did this in the program. There's a team that did this, you're the public response team, you are the digital team with the back-end infrastructure of creating a website, updating that website with the information that we have, creating advocacy forms on how people can actually help, because there are people around the country now that are asking how can we help, how can we help? We need to have a way for people to do that and get plugged in.
It's twofold. I think one is the great love that we have for Public Allies. There was definitely a sense of urgency to do something and do something quickly, because having the understanding that each day that went past meant that allies were going to be even more impacted, communities were going to be even more impacted, and staff not knowing what people's financial situation was, right? Each day that passed without being employed could mean someone could lose housing, or someone would not be able to pay their car note, whatever that looked like. But I think to speak to the methods that we use and why we use those, that's how Public Allies trained us, right? So we all came from, I talk about coming from the same house. So we all came from the same house. While we may not knew each other, we knew each other's values.
Something that Janice Terrell always talks about is you don't graduate from Public Allies, you graduate into Public Allies. So all of us that are out here, we're trying to build a world that is just and fair for everybody. It was remarkable. Over 700 actual alum, and then I think over 400 community members that care about the organization signed on to that letter around, what we believe the organization to be, but what is accountability look like.
We made this list of demands, and they happened, not because we hired some big firm, but because so many individuals came together. And I think we need that reminder that we all do collectively have real power. So if anything, hopefully we've been reminded what we can do together.